Look at you, watching me, watching you, watching you. It's very meta. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Motley Stew Show, where there are going to be a lot of changes coming in the near future for this channel, for this show, and for many other things going on with me. But for right now, the first change that's going to happen is actually on this show. And instead of going deep into one topic, I've mentioned to you guys what I really want you to do is become more involved in politics and become more involved in the government. And to do that, you really need to know what's going on. Now, picking one story and going deep into that does have its benefits. It gets over all the hype that's going on, it gets through the echo chamber, but it also kind of gives us a real nitty-gritty idea of what that story's about. But on the downside, I can only really do one story a week, and there's just too much going on. If you really want to be involved, there's a lot of things to know about. There's a lot of stories in various different states, various different departments, and various different countries that are all important for different reasons. So, starting this week, I'm going to grab a handful of stories each week, not go as deep into them, but give you enough information that maybe if you're more interested in that particular story, I'll give you the links to where I got that research from and you can go from there, which I hope you do. So off to the races we go. First story this week is going to be about Donald Trump. I mean, who else is there really to talk about? Now, I'm not just trying to feed the monster, and the biggest story isn't actually the one that I'm going to be bringing up. That would be the one about him taking different names and then calling reporters and bragging about Donald Trump as if he wasn't Donald Trump. What I want to talk to you about is the meeting that he had with Paul Ryan. Now, Paul Ryan's the current Speaker of the House and says that he is now ready to support Donald Trump. And as I mentioned before, that's really a big problem for the Republican Speaker of the House not to openly get behind the presumptive Republican nominee for president. Now, they supposedly met earlier this week and had a very good talk, but that's really all that came out of it was a very good talk and it was a first step. But really that meant nothing. That didn't tell anyone anything. There was no specifics, and Trump actually had the same feedback with various other people. Ooh. I can take my meds again. And it seems to go in line with the fact that Trump is on this kind of publicity tour, both inside the government and outside the government. He's trying to get that establishment Republican support behind him because he has to get the unified team. He has to get the party connected because otherwise he has no chance of winning, if there's a chance at all. Now, of course, in Trump's mind, it's not only a chance that he's going to win, it's practically a guarantee. And to support that idea, he's already named Chris Christie, the current governor of New Jersey, as the head of his transition team to move his people into the White House. Normally, people don't announce their transition team until they've actually won. But hey, this is Trump we're talking about. So let's never say that confidence wasn't one of his traits. Moving on to the next story, for all those people out there who vape, things might not be getting so smooth for you anymore. I really wanted to do something like your chances of peacefully vaping are going up in smoke or some pun like that, but very soon, e-cigarettes will actually be illegal for minors to buy. So they're going to be regulated the same way that normal cigarettes and alcohol are under the FDA rules. And not only will this apply to vaping, but it will also go for hookahs and cigars. Now, the big part of this that's actually having the most damage, the most impact, is the final rule that's going to regulate the companies that make these things, that make the hookahs, that make the vaping cigarettes. And all of those are going to have to pass the same rules under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which the manufacturers of those products are complaining because that could be anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million per product that they're trying to sell. So many of these businesses that kind of popped up in the vaping revolution are probably going to go under. Now, other countries like the UK don't really know exactly why we're making such a big deal out of it, because over there, vaping is actually a good thing. Over there, studies have shown that actually adults who are currently smoking are using vaping as a way of actually kicking that habit. And that's how many of the people who make the vaping products are promoting it as a safe alternative. But the problem is, different than the UK, in the US, it's actually become much more of a fad with teens, people who never smoked at the beginning. So it's actually more of a gateway moving into smoking than out of it, at least according to the FDA. Now, this story actually goes back to one of the ones I talked about earlier, which was the HB2 bill that passed in North Carolina, which most people know as the transgender bathroom bill, which caused all sorts of other things to happen, like when Target announced that they were okay with whatever gender you currently consider yourself to be, that you could use that bathroom, and caused all these people to come in and scream saying Target is actually pandering to pedophiles pedophiles and rapists and child molesters. And then the very same people that were complaining that Target was actually opening its way up to all these mean people actually ended up becoming those mean people. Numerous cases of men chasing women into the women's room because they didn't think they were women. Sidewalk preachers going into Target and telling everyone they're all going to hell, naming themselves the CEO of Target and firing all the employees. That is not a lie. That actually happened. Of course, he didn't fire anybody, but he said he was going to. So still, that exact story took another step forward because the Department of Justice reached out to Pat McCrory, who's the governor of North Carolina, and said, hey, you know what? You need to take that bill back. You need to shut that down, or we're going to launch a federal suit against your entire state because it's openly discriminatory against transgendered citizens. Now, Pat McCrory didn't actually take that sitting down. He decided to go ahead and file his own lawsuit against the US government, which, since that was his response, they waited for the deadline, and then the Department of Justice filed their own suit. Loretta Lynch gave a press conference explaining everything. Now, the Department of Justice isn't just going after one part of this. It says it violates 3 different things. Title VII, which is non-discrimination in the workplace, Title IX, which is non-discrimination in education, as well as the Violence Against Women Act, by requiring transgender people to use the bathroom according to their gender assigned at birth. They're saying that the protections under all of those things are actually part of gender identity, not different. So the suit from the Department of Justice is not the only suit against North Carolina. This is actually the 3rd suit. There's another one from Lambda Legal and another one from the ACLU. And as I mentioned in a previous video, the current Attorney General of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, is not actually even going to defend HB2 in court, calling it a national embarrassment. Of course, we've seen all the businesses that have actually called out against HB2, people like PayPal that are pulling their jobs out of the state, or proposed expansions, but that's not all. So far, by taking this stand, Governor Pat McCrory of North Carolina could cost their educational system $1.4 billion in funding. And that's not counting all the other things from the NBA, from all the other people that might not show up. We're talking possibly up to $3 billion worth of revenue that the state is going to lose. And that's future revenue. According to one study, they've already lost $80 million. I mean, I don't know about you, but I do not have $80 million just to spend. And for those people who thought that the whole Bundy thing was over, Cliven Bundy, who fought all those people off of his ranch back in 2014, and then of course Ammon Bundy, who led that little mini revolution in Oregon, yeah, they're back. Cliven Bundy actually filed a lawsuit against a lot of people, including the president and Harry Reid. Now, he's had a long-standing dispute with Harry Reid, saying that Harry Reid owns property that is adjacent to his, and that this whole thing with the Bureau of Land Management trying to get Cliven Bundy to stop having his cows graze on federal land without paying for it. He says that's all a scheme from Harry Reid to try to get him to sell his land or to just take it over through the right of the government. Big problem here. He's confusing Harry Reid with an 80-year-old woman who actually owns that property, who has a similar name. I mean, I've made some mistakes in my past, but probably not like that. So those are some of the stories that came out this week. If you want to look into any of those, the links are all down below. You can check them out. If there are stories that I should have covered that you think were more important this week, feel free to leave me a note. Maybe we'll talk about them next week. I want to thank you for watching another episode of the Motley Stew Show. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so down below as well. You can also like, favorite, and share this video and send it out to anyone you think might want to participate in the discussion, talk about politics, talk about whatever. Stay tuned for next week and all the other things that are coming up. And as always, here's some of the kids.
Did you, pond. Those are 2 ducks from the pond right here?
Yeah. There's the mommy duck and the daddy duck.
Oh, yeah.
What is this?
What?
The cow? And this is a farmer?
You actually
And there's a
have...
pig.
Oh, not that exact one. But you have one very close to that at home.
It's the...
You've got this. You have this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yes. I do just have that.
Yeah.
I have that.
You don't have that truck. It's a cool truck, though.
It's a choo-choo train.
No way.
Yeah.
I do see it. Question is, do you see it?
It's Marshall.
What? Oh, it is.
Spider.
Hey everybody, welcome to another opportunity for me to fuck up. Move that out of frame. Much better.